So there was this show on BBC called Time Commanders, where they took a group of amateur historians who wanted to put themselves through their paces, and they wanted to see if they could successfully, achieve victory at a historical battle. This show hooked me.
Yeah.
I was a young teenager. I must have been sort of 13, maybe 12, 13, something like that, when it came out. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then because of my love for it, my parents would watch it with me. They used Rome Total War in that game. So when I found out that it was a game that I could play, I was like, that's the game I want to get, Mum and Dad. And Mum and Dad were thinking, well, look at all this historical benefit that it's had. You know, we sit around as a family and we learn about these battles and about Roman history and not just Roman, but the Carthaginians. You know, so they were like, hell yeah, go for it. So went and got this game, and we talked briefly before we started filming. We talked about the experience of having the old, the cases, the hard media, and this game came in a box. You open it up and then you pull out the case, and then inside the case there's a big fold out. It's got details and it's got all these historical Roman facts, but then it's got a fold out of the map that you can play in the game.
Oh, sick.
So I would be playing the game and I would be conquering cities, and I would start with one settlement, and I'd finish my play for that day with 6, and I'd go downstairs with the map and I'd put it out on the table, and I'd be like Mum and Dad, like the little general, being like, so I did this and I took this and I took this because it meant I had, there was a purpose, because it meant that from here I had a strategic advantage to move on to here, thinking, and I would just, my parents obviously looking back on it going, yeah.
I can just imagine this as well. Like you're like a Caesar who's just like, I'm doing this and this. Mother.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
But I loved it. I loved it so much. It's interesting because I am such a huge fan of narrative-driven games, and yet one of my very first true sort of hooks, one of the games, like the series that I played the most, Total War, is a strategy game and isn't a narrative game, and I will keep coming back to it. I keep coming back to like Warhammer franchise within it as well. Every now and then I go back and I play the original Rome. Even it's so kind of outdated now, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
it's great.
matter.
It works.
And it is narrative, isn't it? It's like Roman
Yeah,
Empire
you're telling your own
such
story as well.
insane-
The narrative is like, what kind of ruler am I? Am
Yeah.
I going to put these cities to the death, or am I going to be benevolent? And then the sacrifices I make by not sacrificing people is then I have to handle their discontent because they've been subjugated. So what am I going to make? I'm going to have to build this temple there to keep them happy. So there is a kind of narrative that goes on that's in your head, I guess. But I actually, I recently during COVID found out I have ADD and struggled at school with attention and focus. And I made a deal with my history teacher one time that if I got above a certain grade, that I would be able to take one of the classes, and I would be able to teach any kind of history that I wanted. And I brought in the PC to school. My parents had me take it in, we brought it in, hooked it up to a projector, and I taught about Roman sort of strategy and tactics.
Amazing.
And different types of armor and different, sort of units and different purposes for Triarii and their purpose against the Praetorian. And my teacher let me do it.
That's
and
amazing.
I got mocked from like a couple of the cool kids at the back of the class.
God.
And then do you know what was great? A couple of the cool girls at the back of the class turned around and were like, shut up. Let him teach. He clearly loves this. This is cool. I like this because do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, yeah, stand up for me.
I must admit, I was so surprised by like how detailed it is. And this is the thing that like a lot of people say is like so amazing about this game, even now. The fact that like the way in which, and I forgive me not knowing the actual terminology, but the way in which they do their shields, the fact that like
Testudo
arrows,
formation.
like there was arrow directionals, so you had to make sure that it was blocking in a certain way, because if arrows were coming from this side, it would actually hit you. But not from this side. So it was like so much, but they were only like little teeny tiny soldiers. Like so realistic.
It's so good. Like things like, yeah, for the time as well. Like
Yeah.
it was crazy. You go into a testudo formation, and which is where you create the turtle shell with the shields. And as a result, you know, there was a sacrifice where your unit would move like half speed.
Yeah.
Because that makes sense. You're all locked in and you're kind of moving as one, you know, hunch and bunched unit, which, I mean, now you go, yeah, cool, you can do that in a game, easy peasy. But at the time, you know, you're seeing individual units. It's not just like soldiers within a unit going down, like fighting and going down, which blew my mind. Because usually it would be, you know, once upon a time, you'd have your unit and then there'd be a general health bar for the whole thing. And then once the health bar was done, boom, they all die. To have them function and work as a unit and to see them, the individuals, and if the individuals would die more frequently on one end, that would impact the way in which, you know, you could then be enveloped and flanked. It was crazy for its time. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's, I know like sometimes with games like this, I feel like it's kind of like a cozy game. Do you feel like it's kind of like your cozy game that you come back to?
Yeah, that's such a weird one because yes, but isn't it weird that a cozy game is, I'm going to take over the world and kill everyone.
Yeah.
Right? You think
it's like
cozy
a comfort.
Yeah, I think the coziness and the comfort is the nostalgia and the feeling of childhood.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's like, if I ever went back and played the Philosopher's Stone, the PC Philosopher's Stone, I would immediately just feel like a kid again.
Yeah.
Specifically at Christmas, I've got such a strong memory of that game at Christmas time, getting it for Christmas, and then family being around and playing a level, and all my cousins sat around watching as we played it on the, yeah. It's one of those, as soon as I hear the music for Rome Total War, I feel like a child.